The discovery in the desert. Date, early 1943. Location, North Africa, near El Guetar. The desert wind howled over a graveyard of metal. Burned-out hulls of tanks lay half-buried in the golden sand, silent witnesses of a brutal battle long ended. Among the wrecks, a patrol of German engineers stumbled upon something strange. A squat, rounded silhouette unlike the sharp-edged panzers they knew. It was an American Sherman tank, its treads broken, its gun silent, but its form intact. At first glance it looked unimpressive. The armor was thin, the gun shorter than that of a Panzer IV, and its lines lacked the intimidating presence of a Tiger. To the Germans, it seemed like a primitive machine, a curiosity more than a threat. So they ordered it shipped back to Germany for study. Weeks later, under the dim lights of a workshop in Stuttgart, German engineers began taking it apart piece by piece. What they found would shake their confidence to the core. Inside the Sherman's hull was not brilliance, but clarity, a design built for speed of manufacture, for ease of repair, for repetition on an unimaginable scale. This wasn't the work of an engineer chasing perfection. It was the work of a nation preparing for industrial war. Every bolt, every weld, every plate told the same story. America wasn't trying to build the best tank. America was trying to build the most tanks. And as they realized this, one German officer whispered the truth that would haunt them through the rest of the war. We may win the battles, but they will win the war. Inside the mind of German engineers. Date, March 1943. Location, Stuttgart, Germany. Wehrmacht. Technical Evaluation Center. The captured Sherman tank arrived under heavy guard, its hull scorched by desert sun and battle. German officers watched as a crane lifted it from the transport car, setting it down in a hangar filled with the smell of oil and steel. To them, it looked unimpressive, a toy compared to the hulking Tigers and Panthers that were the pride of the Reich. Its turret was rounded, its armor too thin, its design unsophisticated. This is the enemy? One of the younger engineers laughed. They send us tractors, and we send them lions. But Colonel Hoffman, the lead inspector, said nothing. He simply ordered the work to begin. The first examination. As the days passed, the engineers took apart the Sherman with surgical precision. At first, they sought flaws. They expected to find weakness, and they did. The armor could be pierced by most German guns, and the main cannon was underpowered compared to the Panther's 75mm high-velocity weapon. Yet something felt off. The deeper they went, the more their confusion grew. The layout of the machine was astonishingly logical, every part easily accessible, every component marked and numbered. Even the electrical wiring was color-coded, something unheard of in German tanks. When they tested the engine, they found it could be replaced in a few hours, a task that would take a German crew 2 days on a Panzer IV and a full week on a Tiger. "This is not genius," muttered one engineer. "This is organization." The realization. In the evenings, the officers gathered around the dismantled hull, coffee mugs in hand, staring at the strange American machine. "What are they thinking?" asked one. "They're wasting resources on simplicity." But Hoffman shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "They are saving time, and time is the only resource that wins wars." He showed them the standardized parts, bolts, gears and plates stamped with identical numbers. They were interchangeable, mass-produced, and precisely made. The Americans had eliminated the need for master craftsmen. Anyone with basic training could build or repair a Sherman. That night, the team compared the production statistics. In 1942, Germany had built just over 6,000 tanks. America, more than 24,000, and they were just getting started. The room fell silent. The truth was clear, and it was terrifying. Germany was waging war with artistry. America was waging war with factories. The report. Weeks later, a classified report was sent to Berlin. Its conclusion was blunt. The strength of the American Sherman lies not in design, but in reproducibility. It is not a superior tank, but a superior product of an industrial system. Their victory will be measured not in quality, but in quantity. Hoffman added one final note in his personal diary. "We can outshoot them. We can out-engineer them." The industrial weapon. Date, mid-1943. Location, Detroit, Michigan. The arsenal of democracy. The sun rose over the city of Detroit, not to the hum of cars, but to the thunder of war. Smokestacks painted the sky black. The sound of hammers and engines echoed through steel walls. This was no longer the Motor City. It was the machine of freedom. Inside the massive halls of the Chrysler Tank Arsenal, assembly lines stretched for miles. Conveyor belts rolled, sparks flew, and the rhythm of production became a new kind of music. the song of industrial war. Men, women, and even teenagers worked side by side. Some had never held a wrench before, but now they built tanks, engines, and guns faster than the German army could destroy them. Every 5 minutes, a new Sherman tank rolled off the line, painted, armed, tested, and ready for battle. To Germany, it was unimaginable. To America, it was Tuesday. The power of many. Unlike the precision-driven factories of Europe, the American war industry thrived on scale. Steel from Pittsburgh, oil from Texas, rubber from Louisiana, engines from Chicago, all came together in a perfectly synchronized web of logistics. It wasn't genius, it was coordination. Factories that once built refrigerators now made tank parts. Ford's massive River Rouge plant, once producing cars, now built bomber engines and tracked vehicles. Women in overalls, the Rosies, became the unsung heroes of the war, tightening bolts and welding armor plates with fire in their eyes. They weren't just building machines, they were building hope. For every Sherman destroyed in battle, 3 more were already on ships crossing the Atlantic. When one fell, another replaced it within weeks. It was war fought not on the battlefield, but on the factory floor. The numbers game. By late 1943, America's war production reached numbers that defied belief. 50,000 tanks a year, 300,000 aircraft, over 8 million tons of shipping every month. Factories operated 24 hours a day, 3 shifts, no breaks, no silence. For the workers, the war never stopped. To Hitler's generals, this was more terrifying than any weapon. They had underestimated not the Sherman, but the system that gave birth to it. The United States had turned industry into a weapon, and that weapon was infinite. The arsenal of democracy. When President Franklin D. Roosevelt had promised to make America the arsenal of democracy, few could imagine what it meant. Now that promise had come to life, in steel, in sweat, in sacrifice. German spies sent reports back to Berlin describing the scale of American industry. One wrote, stunned, "They are not fighting a war, they are manufacturing one." And he was right. In every Sherman tank there was a story of a worker who gave up sleep, of a mother who built shells, of a nation that believed numbers could defeat tyranny. The true secret of the Sherman wasn't its gun or its armor. The battlefield truth. Date, June-August 1944. Location, Normandy, France, the Western Front. The beaches of Normandy had fallen silent. The thunder of D-Day was fading into the rumble of engines, thousands of them. Across the hedgerows of northern France, the Sherman tank rolled forward, its treads grinding over the ruins of war. They came in endless columns, olive drab against the smoke-filled horizon, the mechanical heartbeat of an army reborn. But now, for the first time, the Sherman would face its true test, the German Tiger and Panther. The first clash. Near the small village of Villers-Bocage, a British armored column advanced through narrow lanes, their Shermans confident after weeks of success. Then from the tree line came a thunderous roar, the Tiger Y, commanded by the legendary German ace Michael Wittmann. In minutes, his 80mm gun tore through the British formation. One shot, one kill. Shermans exploded like paper targets. Crews bailed out under fire, scrambling for cover. The Sherman's thin armor could not withstand the Tiger's fury. Its shells bounced harmlessly off the German tank's thick hide. The Allies were learning the hard truth. In a duel, the Sherman could not win. Adaptation over destruction. But what the Sherman lacked in power, it made up for in numbers, speed, and adaptability. While Tigers were rare and precious, each requiring months to build and constant maintenance, Shermans were everywhere. For every Tiger destroyed, 10 more Shermans rolled ashore. Commanders began to change tactics. They hunted in packs, using flanking maneuvers, calling in artillery and airstrikes. The Sherman wasn't designed to fight one-on-one duels. It was part of a team, a mobile ecosystem of infantry, tanks, and air support working as one. A single Tiger might dominate a field, but 100 Shermans could dominate a continent. The upgrade. By late 1944, the Allies responded with a new version, the M4A3E8 EZ-8. It carried a more powerful 76mm gun, improved suspension, and better armor. Still not equal to the Tiger, but fast, reliable, and deadly in groups. Alongside it came the Firefly, a British modification armed with the fearsome 17-pounder cannon. At last, Allied crews could destroy Tigers from a distance. The tide was turning. The human side. Inside each Sherman was a crew of 5. Young men from small towns, factories, and farms. They gave their tank nicknames: Fury, Lucky, Angel, Hellcat. They knew their machine's limits, and still, they climbed inside every day. They fought not with arrogance, but with determination. They learned to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast the enemy. One veteran later said, "The tiger was a beast. The panther was a hunter. But the Sherman? The Sherman was a survivor." The turning point. By the end of the Normandy campaign, the lesson was clear. German tanks were superior, but they were few. Allied tanks were inferior, but they were everywhere. The march to Paris. Date: August 1944. Location: northern France, from the hedgerows to the City of Light. The countryside of Normandy burned behind them. The Sherman crews had survived the hell of the hedgerows. Narrow lanes, hidden ambushes, sudden death from every bush and field. Now they were finally free to move. The breakout had begun, from the beaches to the rolling plains of France. The Allied armor advanced like a steel tide. At the front of nearly every column rumbled the Sherman, battered, scarred but unstoppable. Operation Cobra. On July 25, 1944, the sky over St. Lo erupted. Thousands of Allied bombers dropped over 3,000 tons of explosives, blasting open a hole in the German line. When the smoke cleared, the Shermans roared forward. They came in endless waves. American, British, Canadian, Polish. What had begun as cautious progress through hedgerows became a race. Across open country, German resistance shattered. Their tanks ran out of fuel, their supply lines were gone, their morale collapsing. For every tiger still fighting, 10 Shermans hunted it from the flanks. What Germany could no longer replace, America could build faster than ever. War had become a game of numbers, and the Allies were winning. The liberation of Paris. By late August, the Allied advance reached the Seine River. The city of Paris had been under German occupation for 4 long years. Now the Shermans were closing in. On August 24th, elements of the Free French 2nd Armored Division, riding in American-built Shermans, broke through German defenses and raced into the city. Civilians cheered in the streets. Church bells rang for the first time since 1940. From the turrets of their tanks, Allied soldiers waved as crowds swarmed around them, offering flowers, wine, and tears. In the heart of Paris, a Sherman tank rolled to a stop in front of the Hôtel de Ville. On its side, painted in white letters, was the word Champagne. For the first time, liberation had a sound, the deep rumble of a Sherman engine. Lessons of fire. Yet victory carried a cost. Thousands of Sherman crews had fallen along the way. They had fought through burning towns and ambushes, learning that survival meant adaptation. The Sherman was not invincible, but it was reliable, replaceable, and relentless. Every destroyed tank was quickly replaced. Every lost crew was honored by another stepping forward. And with each passing week, the Allies grew stronger, faster, more confident. The German army, once feared and untouchable, was now being hunted. Toward the Rhine. By the autumn of 1944, the Allies stood at Germany's doorstep. The same tank that had once been mocked by German engineers now dominated the battlefield. Shermans filled the roads, the fields, and the skies above them roared with Allied planes. The war was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Tiger was a symbol of power. The Sherman had become a symbol of persistence. The long road to the Rhine. Date: September, December 1944. Location: northern France, Belgium, and western Germany. The victory in Paris had lifted Allied spirits. But the march eastward brought new challenges. The countryside grew denser with forests and rivers. Towns became fortified strongholds. And the Wehrmacht, though weakened, fought with desperate tenacity. The advance into Belgium. By September, Sherman tanks rolled into Belgium. The pace was slower now. Streets lined with rubble. Towns defended by determined German infantry. And ambushes hidden in narrow alleyways. Each village taken required coordination between tanks, infantry, and artillery. The Allies relied on the Sherman's mobility and numbers. While Tigers and Panthers could destroy a Sherman in a duel, they were few and isolated. Allied commanders used flanking maneuvers, smoke screens, and sheer mass to overwhelm the defenders. The Battle of Antwerp showed both the promise and limits of the Shermans. Securing the port was vital for supply lines, yet the Germans counterattacked fiercely. Shermans, paired with infantry and air support, held the line, exemplifying the combined arms approach that had become standard by now. The harsh winter and the Battle of the Bulge. December 1944 brought one of the Allies' greatest challenges, the Ardennes offensive. Known as the Battle of the Bulge, German forces struck through the forested Ardennes with a last-ditch effort to split the Allied front. Shermans faced freezing temperatures, thick snow, and the shock of surprise attacks. Tanks that might have dominated. Open terrain now struggled. In icy forests and narrow roads. Many were immobilized by the cold or ambushes. Yet crews adapted quickly. Ice was cleared. Tracks reinforced and coordination tightened. Despite initial German gains, the sheer resilience of Sherman crews and relentless Allied reinforcements turned the tide. By January 1945, the bulge had been contained, and the Allies were ready to push into the heart of Germany. Lessons learned. Through autumn and winter, it became clear. The Sherman was not the heaviest tank, nor the most heavily armored, but it excelled in reliability, ease of repair, and production volume. Crews learned to exploit speed, numbers, and coordination. Every obstacle taught adaptation, how to fight through forests, snow, and fortified towns. Germany's finest tanks could not match the collective persistence of the Allies. Each Sherman lost was replaced by another. Each victory built momentum for the next push. Toward the heart of Germany. By early 1945, the Rhine River loomed ahead, the last natural barrier before the German interior. Shermans, now seasoned and scarred, led the charge across France, Belgium, and into Western Germany. The war was far from over, but the Allies had proven that persistence, coordination, and relentless pressure could overcome even the mightiest armor. Across the Rhine, the final push into Germany. Date: March, April 1945. Location: Western Germany. From the Rhine to the heart of the Reich. The Rhine River, Germany's last great natural defense, stretched across the landscape like a silver wall. For years, it had symbolized the border the Allies needed to cross to bring the war to the German heartland. Now, in March 1945, Sherman tanks rumbled toward it once more. The crossing of the Rhine, Allied engineers and infantry, cleared paths through minefields and destroyed bridges. Under the cover of artillery and airstrikes, Sherman tanks led the crossing. Pontoon bridges were erected overnight, and armored columns surged across. German defenders put up fierce resistance, firing from fortified positions and destroying crossings wherever possible. Yet the Sherman's combination of mobility, numbers, and support from infantry and aircraft allowed the Allies to break through. Each crossing brought cheers, not just from soldiers, but from civilians who had long awaited liberation. The Ruhr Pocket. After crossing the Rhine, Sherman crews advanced into the Ruhr Valley, Germany's industrial heart. Here, tens of thousands of German troops were trapped in what became known as the Ruhr Pocket. Sherman spearheaded the encirclement, supporting infantry in urban combat and river crossings. Tanks and artillery worked together to cut supply lines, isolate pockets of resistance, and crush counterattacks. By April, the Ruhr had fallen, and Germany's industrial capacity was effectively neutralized. Urban warfare and the march to Berlin. The final battles took Sherman crews into towns and cities, where German forces fought house to house. Panthers, Tigers, and remaining anti-tank guns ambushed Sherman columns, but Allied combined arms tactics and sheer numbers overcame them. Crews learned to strike quickly, withdraw when necessary, and support infantry in clearing buildings. Every destroyed Sherman was a lesson. Every victory boosted morale. By April, the Allies had reached the Elbe River. German forces were disorganized, supplies were exhausted, and the war's end was in sight. The Sherman's legacy. By the time the Sherman rolled through Germany, it had transformed from a tank once mocked for its armor into a symbol of persistence, adaptability, and industrial power. Its crews were hardened veterans, having survived Normandy, the Ardennes, and the final push through Germany. The Sherman had not been the heaviest, fastest, or most powerful tank on the battlefield, but it had been everywhere, replaced quickly when lost, and unstoppable in collective force. The war had been won not by perfection, but by reliability, numbers, and unwavering determination toward victory in Europe. As April 1945 ended, the Allies stood at the heart of Germany. Berlin awaited, but for most Sherman crews, the war had already proven one undeniable truth: persistence and coordination. Victory in Europe. The Sherman's last campaign. Date: April-May 1945. Location: Germany, from the Elbe to Berlin. After months of relentless fighting, the Allies were closing in on Berlin. Sherman tanks, now battle-hardened and scarred, advanced steadily, clearing towns, supporting infantry, and overcoming the last pockets of German resistance. The final push. As April 1945 progressed, German forces were in disarray. Supply lines were shattered, morale was collapsing, and cities had become chaotic battlefields. Sherman crews moved in coordinated columns, using speed and numbers to outflank enemy positions. Despite facing Panthers, Tigers, and fortified positions, the Sherman's reliability and mass production ensured that any loss was quickly replaced. Every crew that fell was honored by another stepping forward, and the advance never stopped. The fall of Berlin. While the Sherman played a supporting role in the final battle for Berlin, it was critical in encircling the city and cutting off escape routes. Infantry rode in the tanks, moving through rubble-strewn streets and clearing fortified positions. The Allies' combined arms strategy, tanks, infantry, artillery, and air support, overwhelmed what remained of the Wehrmacht. On May 2, 1945, German forces in Berlin surrendered. Across Europe, cities celebrated liberation. From the beaches of Normandy to the streets of Berlin, the Sherman had been there, a constant presence in the fight against tyranny. The Sherman's legacy. The war in Europe was over, but the story of the Sherman endured. It had proven that reliability, replaceability, and persistence could win wars. Where German tanks relied on superiority in armor and firepower, the Sherman relied on sheer numbers, adaptability, and the determination of its crews. Allied nations quickly documented the lessons of the war. Mass production, combined arms tactics, and crew training were just as important as technical specifications. The Sherman influenced armored doctrine for decades, shaping post-war tanks and armored warfare strategies worldwide. Remembering the crews, thousands of crews had risked everything to operate these tanks. Each victory, each push across enemy territory came at a human cost. Memorials and stories would keep their bravery alive. The Sherman may have been a machine, but it became a symbol of human determination, ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of victory. End of the European campaign. By May 1945, Europe was free. The Sherman had marched from the beaches of Normandy, through the hedgerows, across France and Belgium, and into the heart of Germany. It had survived ambushes, harsh winters, and the most formidable tanks Germany could field. In the end, the Sherman's story was not just one of steel and firepower. It was a story of persistence, teamwork, and the enduring human spirit.